Hi everyone, this is Ekaterina, and today I'll be talking about different types of support that the counselors might need when they are working with their clients. So I'll give you some examples of difficult issues that can arise from the counseling relationship, and also talk about different forms of guidance support that the counselors can rely on when trying to find the best way of dealing with those issues and how they can actually help their clients. So not surprisingly, every single client is unique, and you can never predict what sort of topics they would like to discuss during the counseling sessions or what sort of problems they have. So it's not a surprise that some of the counseling relationship can actually have some difficult moments. So I'll give you some examples. Let's say the counselor realizes their limitations when working with a particular client. For example, that client would like to talk about their drug addiction, while this particular counselor doesn't have much experience in this field. So they will feel like perhaps referring this client to a different counselor who specializes in addictions might be a better way. There are also cases when counselors can be blind to their own limitations, so they will remain stubborn and they will continue to want to help this client, but actually if they get advice from a more experienced colleague, they might be pointed out that, well, I don't think you're the best fit, better let this client go to another individual, another professional. There's also cases where clients might talk about self-harm or harming others, and then legally counsellors actually have to refer to other organizations that will support this client. They can be clients that can be quite aggressive, so the counselor can feel threatened or even in danger. There are also clients who might just want to stop counseling without any prior notice, and some counselors might find it difficult to process this. They might question if they've done the best job they could have done, whether they've truly listened to the client, whether they truly understand their needs. So again, they might need to have an advice or feedback from another experienced individual in this field to really let go of the situation, to process it, and to also learn from possible some mistakes they've done, so not to do it again in the future. There can be cases also when the topic that the client brings to the counseling sessions can be very sensitive to the counselor. Let's say the client just recently lost a family member and the counselor is going through a very similar experience in their own life. So again, they might find difficult listening to this client or supporting them when they're themselves processing very similar emotions. There can be also clients who will have conflicting values and beliefs to the counselors. Now, don't get me wrong, counselors are not expected to share their opinions and views about what the client is saying during their sessions. However, as I explained in the person-centered approach created by Carl Rogers, this is the therapy model that used the most in counseling. The counselor still needs to make sure they stay true to their own values and beliefs. So if they're finding it difficult to listen to a client who is saying something very contradictory to what they think, again, they may wish to refer this client to a different counselor where there will be a better match, as opposed to try to just be somebody else and just step over their own values and support this client. So again, you have to think what is best for the client and whether you can support them. There can be also conflict of interest. So for example, the counselor realizes they know somebody who knows the client and they've been kind of receiving a second source of information about this client. And some clients might not take it nicely with regards to not wanting to change a counselor. They're feeling comfortable with you, they want to continue working with you, and they don't see the problem in this conflict of interest. However, some counselors will really need to stop seeing that client for those reasons. And of course, there can be cases when the client can become overly dependent on the counselor. So there's no longer progress happening from the counseling sessions. In fact, the client is more and more relying on what the counselor is saying. And again, the counselor might feel like it's not ethically correct to continue the counseling sessions. And finally, probably one of the most important things to remember is that counselor is still a human being. So therefore, if they see client after client, week after week, and they mostly hear only negative stories about the experience their clients had, well, it's quite understandably that they might find themselves feeling quite emotionally distressed as well. Because even though you try to detach your professional life from your personal life, it will still stay with you. You know, the clients might move on, they might reach their targets and finish their counseling relationship, but the counselor will still remember those stories. So the counselors themselves have to make sure they prioritize their self-care and they are fully aware how they're feeling after seeing clients and whether they're actually emotionally stable and comfortable to support the clients. So again, in such cases, if they feel like they actually are not feeling very well, they need to seek support in order to get in a better place. So what sort of support are we talking about? And I think one of the most common type of support people are mostly aware of is social support. So I'm talking about the comfort we get from interacting with our family, with our friends, with our colleagues and peers. It's all about us feeling as a part of a community, of a group of people that truly care about us. And the social support cannot be underestimated. In fact, there has been a number of research on this topic. They looked at people from different demographics, ages, different eating habits and physical activities. And the studies have shown that people who have very strong social support, social bubble, they tend to live much longer lives and much happier lives. So it's not about only counselors, but every single individual really needs social support. So in case of counselors, when we're talking about social support, yes, we are talking about also their friends and family that, you know, will listen to them or give them some help or some guidance. But most importantly, you know, something that maybe some people don't realize is the fact that counselors tend to have supervisors. So it's somebody they see every so often, and somebody they can discuss any sort of issues with, and also somebody they can just contact if they have a difficult client or difficult situation and they really don't know how to progress. So usually the supervisor is somebody who has more experience in counseling, they're specially trained to provide that supervision. And again, this is a very powerful source of support, especially when the counselor is new, they just maybe became qualified, they don't have that much experience, and they need to make sure that they are working with the client in the most ethical and beneficial way to that client. And secondly, as you know, I am doing this course in college, so I'm starting to build like a bubble of like-minded people, a group of peers that I can also rely on. And some of those people are planning to continue with their studies like myself to become fully qualified counselors. So in the future, again, I might want to reach out to them to ask for advice, to see if they had similar experience and how they dealt with those tricky situations. Of course, due to the confidentiality clause, I won't be able to disclose maybe information about the clients. However, on general terms, we should be able to bounce some ideas of each other. The second type of support I wish to discuss is the information support. And this comes from obviously doing the courses and actually become qualified. But once you are, counselor, what can you do further? Well, first of all, you can become part of the counselling organizations. So previously I talked about BACP, the British Association of Counselling Professionals, and those organizations are really good with regards to providing guidance, continuous development, training, support to the counselors. So it's a great source of information that it doesn't have to be BACP, it can be other ethical organization, but certainly it is beneficial for the counselor to be part of one of those organizations. Secondly, the counselors need to make sure that they are continuously developing, so there's more training to do. You have to make sure you are on top of any sort of research happening in the counseling field, any data that is relevant, any trends. For example, right now, as we're coming out of pandemic, lots of people are still struggling with a sense of loneliness or not knowing how to get back into their social circles. Lots of friendships have been lost. So again, as a counselor, you need to make sure you know about any new sort of therapy models that have been invented, any new ways of helping and supporting the clients. So making sure you stay on top of the news, you're aware of any legal changes in this field is really also important to the counselors. And finally, I would like to talk about emotional support. And even though it's kind of interlinked with the social support with regards to us getting that sort of comfort from being listened to, however, most importantly for the counselors, again, something that clients sometimes don't know themselves is the fact that counselors also have to do counseling. This is something that they have to do as a part, I think, of even getting their insurance as the counselors. So there's a number of hours of counseling they have to do every single year. I think it also involves some CBT sessions. And I think it's really good because it really gives the time for the counselors to evaluate their own emotional state, make sure that they're stable, that they're happy, and obviously process any sort of issues that arose during the counseling relationship, how they dealt with it, and whether they can move on. So that's one of the, again, very important types of support that the counselors can rely on. And from my perspective, I find it very useful to learn about those different types of support so early on in my study program. So it's only level 2, there's another 3 years to go. However, it's certainly been on my mind and on the mind of other students as to, well, when we become qualified, are we just going to be released into the wild world and just act on our own, or is there somebody I can go to? So it was really nice to hear that actually there's numerous types of support we can rely on, and that we are not by ourselves. We certainly have a supervisor, we have peers, we have those organizations, we have future development, we have a counseling that we'll be doing. So it was really nice to get that information so early on and just kind of get over that fear. It certainly made me feel more reassured that we're not expected to know everything when we finish the study. We're not expected to be able to handle every single client, and that certainly there's always somebody you can go to ask a question if you are a bit unsure. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Next week I'll be talking about self-reflections and self-awareness, something that I really like to do myself, and I hope you'll find this topic also interesting. But for now, please remember to leave your comments, like the videos if you enjoyed them, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, take good care of yourself. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.